The Galactic Council of Dominion Species, a coalition of the oldest and most powerful empires in known space, had convened in crisis. The chamber, an imposing amphitheater of cold obsidian and bioluminescent glyphs, was filled with representatives from the 21 dominant species of the galaxy. At the center of the chamber stood Chancellor Vorin Telkar, a towering member of the Tolmari Dominion, an ancient, bureaucratic species that had ruled the Council for thousands of years. His pale, amphibian-like features remained unreadable as he gazed across the gathered alien warlords, strategists, and diplomats. "This meeting is now in session," Telkar intoned, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are here to address the human problem." A murmur rippled through the assembly. The Varak War Council, reptilian warmongers with bony ridges and slit-pupilled eyes, sneered in amusement. The Kryn Collective, a hive-mind insectoid species, remained eerily silent, their antennae twitching. The Draljak overlords, towering bioengineered warriors, stood motionless, awaiting their orders like living weapons. The human problem. The hollow display in the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing a map of Council-controlled space. Large swaths of it had been infiltrated, conquered, or outright destroyed by a single, unrecognized faction: Terran Republic military forces. "This species has expanded too quickly," said High Strategist Voltas of the Sivaxian Ascendancy, his glowing tendrils shifting uneasily. "They do not respect our borders, our treaties, or our laws. They expand recklessly, like a virus." The display changed again, this time showing footage of the Battle of Zevris 9, where a supposedly primitive Terran fleet had obliterated a Council battle group twice its size. Council forces had relied on traditional formation tactics, a method that had worked for millennia against lesser species. But humanity had fought like no enemy before. Ambush tactics, feints and counterattacks, hacking enemy systems mid-battle, suicidal bravery. The result? The Council fleet had been annihilated. The vote for extermination Council members debated. Some argued for diplomacy, others demanded a full-scale war. Then, the Varak Supreme War Master, Karvash, leaned forward. "They are primitives," he growled. "We should crush them, burn their homeworld to cinders." Chancellor Telkar hesitated. Destroying an entire species was a drastic move. But then the display flickered again. New footage. This time, it was a human response transmission intercepted after a Council ambush failed. A scarred Terran admiral leaned forward, staring directly into the camera. His voice was a warning. "You want a war? Fine, you'll get one. But know this, we don't fight like you. We don't surrender. We don't break. You come for us, and we will come for you. Every species you hide behind, every world you call home, we will burn them down until there's nothing left. And when we stand on the ashes of your civilization, you will understand your mistake." Silence filled the chamber. Chancellor Telkar exhaled slowly. Then he spoke. "Humanity is hereby declared a valid military target." Final scene. The Draljak overlords step forward, their crimson eyes glowing in approval. The Varak generals exchange wicked smiles. Across the galaxy, Council warfleets mobilize. They believe this war will be swift. They could not be more wrong. The human frontier, Ankaris Prime, Outer Rim Colony. A dust storm howled through the ruins of Fort Vega, a once thriving Terran military outpost on Ankaris Prime. The sky above was on fire, the remains of destroyed Council warships burning as they fell into the planet's atmosphere. Admiral Elias Voss, commander of the HSS Warborn, stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the battlefield with cold calculation. The odds had been 10-1 against them when the Council fleet arrived. The enemy had expected an easy extermination. Instead, Voss had turned their own arrogance against them. The ambush. The Council warfleet, deploying in rigid phalanx formations, had expected a head-on battle. Voss had done the unthinkable. He let them close the distance before executing a micro-jump behind their fleet, appearing inside their defensive perimeter. Point-blank range railgun barrages tore through enemy command ships. Electronic warfare viruses infiltrated their targeting systems, blinding their weapons. Human strike fighters weaved through gaps in the enemy formations, exploiting every weakness. The result? What should have been a massacre of humanity turned into a massacre of the Council. Ground war begins. While the fleet battle raged above, on the ground, a second war was unfolding. The Council had landed Draljak shock troops, believing their bioengineered warriors would slaughter all human resistance in hours. They were wrong. The Draljak were stronger, faster, and more heavily armed. But humans fought dirty. Booby traps, urban ambushes, sniper teams, and asymmetric warfare turned the battle into a nightmare for the invaders. Commander Reyna Vale, Ghost Squadron's last stand. In the ruins of Fort Vega, Commander Reyna Vale led the last surviving members of Ghost Squadron, an elite Terran Special Forces unit. Draljak warriors closed in, their glowing plasma blades slicing through rubble. Vale checked her ammo count. 3 rounds left in her rail rifle. Not enough. Ghost Squad, hold the line, she barked into her comm. A Draljak warrior charged, towering over her, twice her size, muscle corded with bioarmor. She ducked, slid beneath its swing, and emptied her last rounds into its skull. Another Draljak stormed toward her and was blown apart by an orbital railgun strike. Above, Admiral Voss had taken control of the battlefield. This is Warborn Actual. We are in control of orbit. Time to send the Council a message. Final moments of the battle. Humanity executes a counteroffensive, reclaiming the surface. Council survivors flee in terror, realizing too late that this will not be a short war. Voss transmits a final message back to the Council. We gave you a chance to leave us alone. Now, you just started a war you cannot win. Final scene. The shattered remains of the Council fleet drift in space. Terran warships regroup, preparing for the next battle. HFY moment. This war was supposed to be the Council's triumph. Instead, it was humanity's first victory. The fires of war still raged in the ruins of Fort Vega as the Council's extermination force retreated. Admiral Elias Voss watched from orbit as the last Council warships engaged emergency slipstream drives, abandoning the battlefield. Humanity's first victory. The message sent to the Council. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, and now they knew it. But Voss wasn't satisfied with a single victory. They'll regroup and retaliate, he muttered, staring at the wreckage of enemy vessels floating in Ankaris Prime's gravity well. Then we don't give them the chance, came the voice of Commander Reyna Vale, her face still smeared with the blood and soot of battle. Vale, leader of Ghost Squadron, had survived the ground war against the Draljak, Council-engineered biowarriors bred for extermination. Her team had fought against impossible odds and still stood. But Voss wasn't calling her here to celebrate. The Council just made the biggest mistake in history, he said. Now, we make sure they never recover from it. Mission: cut the head off the snake. A direct assault on the Galactic Council's war command would be impossible, at least for now. But intelligence intercepts had revealed a key vulnerability. Target: Lord High Strategist Voltas. The Syvaxian tactician had orchestrated the Ankaris invasion. He was the mind behind the Council's war doctrine, a master strategist and political manipulator. Without him, the Council would flounder in confusion. And, most importantly, he was scheduled to be on a council-held world within striking distance, a world the enemy believed to be safe. "We cut the head off this snake before it grows new fangs," Vale said, eyes cold. "I'll take my team in." Voss nodded. Operation Iron Requiem was a go. The infiltration, landing on Kesar 7. Kesar 7, a frigid storm-lashed planet deep in Council space, served as a classified tactical command hub for the war. The planet's surface was covered in massive ice plains, jagged crystalline mountain ranges, and deep underground fortresses where high-ranking Council officials planned the next phase of extermination. Mission parameters. Objective: assassinate Lord High Strategist Voltas before he can oversee the next invasion. Team: Ghost Squadron, elite Terran Black Ops specialists. Insertion: stealth drop via hull-cloaked drop pods directly into enemy territory. Extraction: non-existent. They either succeed or die. "This is suicide," said Ghost 2, checking his rifle as the squad prepped in the Warborn's drop bay. "No," Vale corrected. "This is vengeance." Vale and her team entered their drop pods. The hatches sealed, and the countdown began. 5. The pods locked into the launch tubes. 4. Systems primed. 3. Warborn's external cannons fired decoy flares to mask their launch. 2. Adrenal boosters engaged. 1. "Ghost Squadron, go! Go! Go!" The pods blasted away from the Warborn, dropping like meteors into the icy darkness below. Behind enemy lines. The hunt begins. The landing was brutal. Vale's drop pod slammed into an ice ridge, skidding for nearly a kilometer before grinding to a halt. She forced the hatch open, stepping into the howling wind. Around her, her team was already emerging. Ghost 1 to all call signs. Status check. 5 acknowledgements. They had all survived the landing. Barely. Ahead of them, a colossal alien fortress loomed, a monolithic structure of obsidian and bioluminescent glyphs. Inside, Voltas was coordinating the next stage of the war. And he had no idea death had just landed on his doorstep. Stealth mode. Engage. The team moved silently across the ice plains, utilizing advanced adaptive camouflage suits that blended them into the environment. Every step forward brought them closer to the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Inside the fortress. The kill zone. Getting past the outer defenses was the easy part. Inside, the fortress was a labyrinth of high-tech corridors filled with council officers, guards, and Draljak enforcers. Vale's squad initiated a silent takedown protocol. Ghost 3 garroted a Syvaxian officer, dragging the corpse into the shadows. Ghost 5 hacked a security node, looping camera feeds. Ghost 2 disabled biometric scanners, ensuring they remained undetected. They advanced, room by room, until they reached the war chamber, a massive circular command center where Voltas stood over a holo display. Vale's HUD identified their target. Target in sight. Move in. The kill. HFY in full force Voltas, deep in thought, didn't hear the first 2 guards die. By the time he turned, Ghost Squadron was already upon him. "What?" Vale didn't let him finish. She plunged her combat knife into his second heart, twisted, and pulled it free. The Council's greatest strategist collapsed, choking on his own blood. "That was for Ankaris," Vale whispered. The alarms blared. The kill had been swift, but now the entire fortress was mobilizing. Escape or die, the last stand. "All units, Ghost Leader to Warborn. Extraction compromised," Vale shouted into her comm. "They're sending everything at us." "Understood," came Voss's voice, calm as ever. "Sending a parting gift." The fortress shook violently. In orbit, the Warborn had fired a kinetic bombardment strike, unleashing rods of depleted uranium at hypersonic speeds. The impact ripped through the structure, creating an opening. "Move, move, move!" Vale commanded. The team fought their way through collapsing corridors, taking down dozens of enemy troops in brutal close-quarters combat. Shotgun blasts shredded armored guards. EMP grenades disabled defense drones. Hand-to-hand combat against Dralzak warriors ended in snapped necks and shattered skulls. At the extraction point, a single dropship hovered. The squad sprinted through gunfire, covering each other as they boarded. Ghost 5 took a plasma round to the leg, but was hauled aboard at the last second. "We're in. Go!" The ship blasted out of the fortress just as the Warborn launched its final strike. The fortress detonated in a fireball visible from orbit. Final scene: the Council in chaos. The news of Voltas's assassination spread like wildfire. Without their master tactician, the Council was in turmoil. Voss watched the Council's desperate transmissions flood in. "They wanted total war," he muttered. "Now they've got it." Humanity wasn't just fighting back anymore. Now they were hunting. The high spires of Crixol, the heart of the Galactic Council of Dominion species, glowed under the eerie blue light of its twin moons. Normally, the chambers of the Supreme War Council were a place of measured diplomacy and calculated power plays. Tonight, it was a war room on the edge of hysteria. Holographic displays filled the chamber, flickering with desperate reports from across the Empire. Fleet Group Theta, annihilated over Ankaris Prime. Lord High Strategist Voltas, assassinated. Tactical Command in disarray. Special Forces incursions, reports of human operatives striking deep into Council territory. Civilian uprisings, multiple Dominion worlds now questioning the war. Chancellor Vorin Telkar, the amphibian-like leader of the Council, gripped the edges of his podium, his expression unreadable. For millennia, the Council had never faced such a threat. And now, humanity was dismantling their war machine piece by piece. "This is unacceptable," hissed Warmaster Karvash of the Varak, his reptilian scales glinting under the chamber's artificial light. His species had always prided itself on military might, but now even his hardened warriors whispered doubts. "First, they defy our expansion orders. Then they slaughter our fleets. And now, they assassinate one of our highest warlords." Karvash slammed a clawed fist onto the podium. "You promised us a swift victory, Chancellor," hissed a member of the Kryn Collective, their multifaceted eyes shifting as if scanning all potential futures at once. "Instead, we are losing." A murmur rippled through the assembly. For the first time in history, the Council was afraid. The debate: to escalate or retreat. The Varak faction, enraged by the loss of their fleets, demanded an escalation. "Deploy more Dralzak! Wipe Earth from the stars!" The Tolmari bureaucrats, ever calculating, hesitated. "We must consider alternatives." The Syvaxian remnants, leaderless after Voltas's assassination, were already wavering in their support of the war. The flaw in their thinking. For centuries, the Council had followed a rigid doctrine, an unshakable belief that war was fought through superior numbers, superior technology, and superior coordination. But humanity had broken that doctrine. Instead of fighting in neat formations, they fought with chaotic ingenuity. Instead of bowing to superior firepower, they adapted and counterattacked with ruthless precision. Instead of breaking, they only became more dangerous the harder they were pressed. "We must consider negotiations," suggested one of the Council's elder statesmen. The room erupted in fury. "Negotiate? With primitives?" Karvash spat, his fangs bared. "They killed our people. They butchered our warlords. There can be no peace." "They have learned our tactics," one of the Tolmari war advisors admitted, his translucent skin shifting color in distress. "But we have not learned theirs." A chilling silence filled the chamber. The Draljak solution, deploying the Nightmare Legion. Enough, the Chancellor finally spoke, his voice cold, calculating, and final. We will unleash the Draljak Prime Battalion. The chamber fell silent. Even Karvash hesitated. The Draljak were already considered the ultimate biological war machines. 7 to 9 feet tall, engineered for slaughter, immune to most forms of conventional damage. They could rip through a human battalion in minutes. But the Prime Battalion? You cannot be serious, one of the Savaxian strategists muttered, his tendrils curling in fear. They were never meant to be deployed outside controlled scenarios. They were bred for one purpose, Telkar said, his voice cold as the void. To exterminate a threat beyond all reason. The Draljak Prime Battalion. Unlike their standard counterparts, the Prime Battalion were self-learning, unrestricted, and uncontrollable. A nightmare even the Council feared. But now, humanity had left them no choice. Dispatch them to Earth. Wipe them out to the last human. Meanwhile, humanity's counteroffensive begins. Terran Military Command. Luna Base. Deep beneath the armored bunkers of Luna Base, the highest-ranking officers of the Terran Republic military forces stood around a holographic map. Admiral Elias Voss, still fresh from the Battle of Ankaris Prime, stared at the latest intelligence reports. The assassination of Voltas had sent shockwaves through the Council. Multiple alien species were beginning to waver in their loyalty to the war. But something was coming. Something bigger. They're mobilizing their Draljak Prime Battalion, said General Carter Wren, leader of the Terran army. The last time they were deployed, an entire empire vanished. Not conquered, not enslaved, just gone. A silence fell over the room. The Draljak Prime were not warriors. They were weapons of extinction. They're coming straight for Earth, Wren continued. We're about to see just how much of a valid target humanity really is. The plan: lure the Council. Into a trap, Voss exhaled, then smiled. A cold, calculating, dangerous smile. Good, he said. Let them come. We'll show them exactly why their ancestors feared the dark. Mission: let the enemy deploy their ultimate weapon. Then, take control of it. Earth wouldn't just survive the invasion, Earth would conquer the invaders. The Council's mistake becomes fatal. Back on Krixall, the Council warlords watched as their greatest weapons departed for Earth. They had convinced themselves that this would be the final battle, that once the Draljak Prime descended upon humanity, nothing would be left of the Terran race. But they had forgotten one thing. When you declare humanity a valid military target, you become one too. Earth, the final battlefield. The Draljak Prime Battalion was coming. From orbit, Earth's defenders watched as dozens of Council dreadnoughts emerged from slipstream space, dropping into high orbit like a fleet of predatory gods. These were not standard warships. They were genetic laboratories, holding bays, and assault carriers, each designed for one purpose: delivering planetary annihilation. On board these vessels, held in cryogenic suspension, were the Draljak Prime, the most horrifying biological war machines ever created. Unlike their lesser counterparts, they weren't just killers. They were self-learning, adaptive, uncontrollable, and they were about to be unleashed upon Earth. They think this is the end for us, General Carter Wren said, standing in the war room of Luna Base. They think we'll go down screaming. Admiral Elias Voss exhaled slowly, watching the fleet descend. Then let's make sure the last thing they hear is their own screams instead. Mission objective: the Hellfire offensive. Instead of fighting a defensive war, humanity would do the unthinkable. Step 1. Lure the Draljak Prime into the kill zones. Step 2. Turn Earth into the deadliest battlefield in history. Step 3. Hijack the Council's own war machine and unleash it back upon them. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was about turning the enemy's greatest weapon against them. The invasion begins. The Draljak landfall. High orbit. The Council's mistake. The Council Grand Admiral, a Tolmari warlord named Sulekvar, stood aboard his dreadnought's command deck, staring down at Earth. His advisors, watching the holofeeds, expected to see Terran defenses scrambling. They expected to see chaos, panic, surrender. Instead, what they saw was silence. No desperate distress calls, no human fleets launching haphazard counterattacks, just a cold, calculating stillness. "They are already broken," Sulekvar sneered. "Drop the Prime Battalion. End this!" Across the fleet, massive containment bays opened, and thousands of Draljak Prime were launched toward Earth in massive orbital drop pods. A species-ending storm of terror. Drop Site Alpha, the ruins of Moscow. The first impact tremors shook the city as the drop pods crashed through concrete, metal, and earth. Pod hatches burst open. Draljak Prime emerged, breathing in the atmosphere for the first time. 10 feet tall. Exoskeletal armor harder than tungsten. Muscle fibers reinforced with carbon nanoweave. Claws sharp enough to rip through a battle tank. And worst of all, they learned. They adapted. And yet, as the Draljak scanned their surroundings, something wasn't right. The city was empty. No military forces in sight, no civilians. Just a vast, sprawling graveyard of concrete and ash. Then, from the rooftops, a single voice echoed over the ruined city's loudspeakers. "Welcome to Earth." The Hellfire offensive had begun. Step 1. The trap springs. In an instant, thousands of hidden Terran plasma artillery cannons emerged from underground bunkers, unleashing a rain of fire on the Draljak landing zones. City streets collapsed as underground mines detonated. EMP warheads scrambled enemy communications. Neural disruptor bombs overloaded the Prime Battalion's enhanced cognition. Walls of plasma fire boxed them in, funneling them into pre-planned kill zones. The Draljak Prime were unstoppable in open combat. But here, they weren't fighting soldiers. They were fighting the entire planet. And Earth was fighting dirty. "Did you think we would just roll over and die?" General Wren's voice echoed through hidden transmission towers. "You declared us a valid target. That means you are too." Massive tungsten rods, kinetic bombardment rounds fired from Luna Base, came screaming from orbit, impaling entire platoons of Draljak warriors before they even understood what was happening. They roared, regrouped, adapted, but then the next phase hit. Step 2. Controlled chaos. Humanity's special forces strike. Ghost Squadron. The Warborn lands. As the Draljak fought through the city, believing they were pushing forward, they had no idea they were being herded. Deep beneath the ruins, Commander Reyna Vale and Ghost Squadron launched the real operation. Objective: hijack a Draljak Prime Command Nexus and turn it against the Council. A single, well-guarded command center controlled the Prime Battalion's strategic link. If humanity could take it, they could turn the Council's war machine on itself. "We take that node, and this battle is over," Vale whispered. "We don't just win. We rewrite the war." Through darkened tunnels, the Ghost Squadron moved in, silent and lethal. Draljak sentries patrolled the corridors. Huge, terrifying, fast. But Ghost Squadron moved faster. Stealth kills, throat slits, silenced rounds, EMP grenades fried security drones. Draljak commanders dropped, dead, before they even knew they were being hunted. The team breached the main command node, a towering structure of alien biomechanics, pulsing with violet energy. "Ghost Leader to Warborn," Vale whispered. We're in position. Step 3. The final play. Unleash the enemy on the enemy. Voss, watching from orbit, saw the pieces fall into place. The Council had designed the Draljak to obey only superior command inputs. But now, human hackers had injected a new protocol. The Draljak Prime Battalion received new orders. Their targeting reticles shifted, their claws flexed, and then they turned on the Council forces. From orbit, the Council warlords watched in horror as their ultimate weapon turned against them. Draljak Prime tore through Council officers. Council dreadnoughts were boarded and overrun. The fleet descended into chaos. Earth had taken the Council's greatest monsters and let them loose on their masters. They just realized, Voss said, watching the carnage unfold, they never stood a chance. The aftermath. The Council warfleet annihilated. The Draljak Prime, now under human control. Humanity had not only survived, they had won. The Galactic Council was broken. It's time, Voss said. We take the fight to them. Humanity wasn't just defending anymore. Now they were coming to claim the stars. The end game. Begins Earth had not just survived, it had evolved. The Council's ultimate weapon, the Draljak Prime Battalion, had been turned against them. What was meant to be humanity's extinction became its greatest victory. The war had shifted. Half the Council's warfleets were destroyed. The Draljak legions, now controlled by human command, had begun attacking their former masters. Dozens of alien worlds, once under Council rule, had begun open rebellions. The Galactic Council, once untouchable, was now in full retreat. But humanity didn't stop. This was no longer about survival. This was about conquest. Admiral Elias Voss, aboard the HSS Warborn, stood before his fleet's high command, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. "This ends now," he said. "We take the fight to them." The mission: destroy the Galactic Council. From within the Council's throne world, Crixol was the last true bastion of power. The surviving warlords had retreated there, believing their fortress world was impenetrable. They were wrong. "We're not fighting a conventional battle," said Commander Raina Vale, leader of Ghost Squadron. "Crixol is too well defended for a fleet engagement." "Then we don't fight conventionally," Voss answered. "We infiltrate, we decapitate the Council leadership, and we burn their world to the ground." Mission parameters: objective: infiltrate Crixol, assassinate the Council warlords, and disable planetary defenses. Strike Team: Ghost Squadron, humanity's deadliest Black Ops unit. Fleet Command: Admiral Voss's Warborn Armada, ready to strike once the defenses are down. The ultimate weapon: human-controlled Draljak Prime battalions, unleashed upon their former masters. This would not be a battle. This would be an execution. Phase 1. The infiltration. Crixol, the untouchable fortress. The Council's throne world was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. Planetary defense grids covered every inch of the atmosphere. A hyper-dense shield made orbital bombardment impossible. The elite guards of the Council, bio-enhanced warlords, patrolled the capital. They believed nothing could breach their defenses. They were wrong. Ghost Squadron. The silent killers. Under the cover of a hacked Council transport signal, Ghost Squadron infiltrated Crixol's atmosphere using stealth shuttles and orbital drop pods. They landed deep inside the capital city, moving through the shadows of towering, obsidian megastructures. "We're in," Vale whispered over comms, moving toward the Council war chamber. The capital was in chaos. News of the Draljak rebellion had spread. Fear had gripped the city. Civilians fled. Council forces were already stretched thin. Ghost Squadron moved like specters, eliminating targets in silence. Sniper kills from high-rise buildings. Dagger thrust assassinations in back alleys. hacking key security networks, turning the Council's own drones against them. By the time the Council realized they had infiltrators inside their capital, it was too late. Phase 2. The Decapitation Strike. Inside the war chamber, humanity strikes at the heart. The Galactic Council, warlords had gathered in their last war room, preparing their final counterattack. "Deploy all remaining forces," screamed Chancellor Telkar, his amphibian features contorted in rage. "We cannot lose this war. Humanity must thwip." A rail sniper round punched through his skull. Ghost Squadron had arrived. Chaos erupted. Plasma bolts tore through the chamber as human operatives stormed in. Council warlords fell, executed with brutal efficiency. Security forces engaged, only to be cut down by precision gunfire and combat knives. Vale strode into the chamber, her pistol still smoking. "Your war is over," she said coldly. The remaining warlords trembled, realizing they were not negotiating with diplomats. They were standing before the apex predators of the galaxy. "Please," one of them gasped, his voice shaking. We surrender." Vale pulled the trigger. One last shot. One last kill. Not accepted. Phase 3. The end of the Galactic Council. With the Council, leadership dead, the remaining alien fleets collapsed into disarray. Then the final blow came. Ghost Squadron activated the planetary defense override. Draljak Prime battalions, now under human control, descended upon Krixall. Humanity's warfleet emerged from Slipstream, annihilating any resistance. The last stronghold of the Council burned. Admiral Voss watched from orbit as Krixall's megacities fell. "They declared us a target," he murmured. "Now they are one." The age of humanity begins. The Galactic Throne. Now under human rule. Days later, on the smoking ruins of Krixall, the surviving species of the galaxy gathered before their new rulers. A massive war banner was raised over the ruins of the Council's former chamber. It bore a single symbol, the sigil of the Terran Republic. Admiral Voss stood before the assembled alien leaders. "This war is over," he declared. "But the days of Council rule are finished. From now on, the galaxy operates under new law, under human law." One of the alien warlords, a surviving Talmari general, stepped forward. "You mean to enslave us?" he growled. "No," Vale answered, stepping beside Voss. "We mean to lead you." The new galactic order. Humanity reigns supreme. The war had started as a fight for survival, but humanity had done more than just survive. They had conquered. The Galactic Council was erased from history. The surviving species swore loyalty to the Terran Republic. The Draljak, once weapons of genocide, now served under human command. Humanity had gone from prey to the apex species of the galaxy. Epilogue. The message to the galaxy. A final transmission was sent from the Terran capital world, Earth, broadcast across the stars. To any who dare challenge us, remember Krixall. Remember what happens when you declare humanity a target. The age of the Galactic Council is over. The age of humanity has begun. Fade to black. That was the Council's biggest mistake, making humanity a valid military target. They thought they could wipe us out. They thought we would break. Instead, we broke them. Humanity has conquered the stars, but the war is never truly over. Because somewhere out there, another enemy is watching. Another threat is rising. And when the time comes, humanity will fight again, and we will win. Enjoyed this story? Like, subscribe, and join the fight. Drop a comment. What would you do if the galaxy declared humanity a target? Want more? Stay tuned for the next great battle. Humanity endures. Humanity conquers. The age of the Council is over. The age of humanity has begun.